welcome to the Red Pueblo Museum. What we have here in our little museum is a collection of Anasazi artifacts. The Anasazi are the folks that lived in our part of the country from around 500 BC to around 1250 AD. About that period of time, they just simply left the area, moved out of here. Most of the archaeologists are in agreement that they're probably the ancestors of the present-day Hopi people that live on the mesa tops to the south of us here. These are a remnant of the articles that they used in their everyday life, and when they did move out of here, these are what they left for us to study and learn about who they were and what type of culture existed here. The term Anasazi is actually a Navajo word. It roughly translates to ancient enemies, so we know right away they weren't their people, and we do believe that they were more closely related to the Hopi people. This list that we have here on the wall is a list of donors that have made contribution to our little museum. The Van Gorders that you see listed here at the top of the chart are largely responsible for this collection of arrowheads that we have in our museum. The fun thing about Mickey and Don's collection is Mickey took the time to put a number on the back of each one of these projectile points, and I have a little handwritten notebook that gives the date and the location where each one of those was found. So it makes a pretty complete collection for us.
So, ballpark, how many that's a lot of arrowheads.
Yeah, roughly 3,000 or 4,000 probably in the
Really?
collection entirely. We've added some of our own to what they have. Their numbers go up to around 2,700, and then I probably have 1,000 or so. That
In
I've
that
added.
notebook, 2,700
Yeah.
Wow.
One of the more unusual pieces we have in our collection is the shaman or medicine man bundle. This dates to roughly 1,500 to 2,000 years in age. The scientists or the archaeologists that study this type thing, for convenience of talking about periods of time with the Anasazi, they've roughly divided the Anasazi culture into two basic divisions. The older one being the basket maker people, roughly before they had pottery, and the Pueblo people after they had pottery. Are the two divisions that they assign there. This would be from the early division, and like I mentioned, roughly 1,500 to 2,000 years.
Prior to pottery, probably.
It is prior to pottery. This bundle contains some very distinctively different pieces. Right in this area, you see a polished antler tine sticking out of the bundle. This is probably from an elk. There's also an antler tine in there from a mule deer. Right directly behind this tine, there's a lock of human hair, about as much as your finger, that's bound up with cordage. Then there's a small animal contained in the bundle. This small animal probably is a prairie dog, judging from the short nap of brown fur that's on the animal.
When you say animal, you mean like a skin or a
It
whole
is the
mummified?
skin. No, it's the skin of the animal.
Okay.
They have caped this animal out. They've skinned him from the back. They've left the feet and the arms and face intact. Then they tied the nose and the mouth shut so that it makes a bag out of the body skin. Then they've even added an extension onto the bag, so roughly this size on the length of the bag that's in there. That probably contained a meal that the shaman used in these blessing ceremonies.
The meal, so like ground up cornmeal,
Cornmeal.
not like a sack lunch.
Cornmeal.
Okay.
Right in this area of the bundle, we have a tapered rock cylinder. It's similar to these smoking devices or pipes that we have right here, but this cylinder is a little larger. It's made of sandstone, and the hole in the center is just a depression. It doesn't extend clear through.
So you can't smoke with
it's not like a pipe. We believe it to be a handheld mortar for grinding that cornmeal or that meal that they used in their blessing ceremony.
grinding up herbs or whatever.
Right, exactly. And then the final thing in the bundle is kind of a crude shaped chopping stone like one of these. And we kind of joked that if you couldn't heal, you'd put you to sleep with that. One of the other pieces that we have here that's a little bit unusual, it's not unusual to have a fire drill and board. What's unusual is to find both pieces together. And this long piece that we have right here that's burned on this end is the piece that's held between your fingers and in a rotating motion, pressing down into the shorter piece. The friction caused by pushing down into that and rotating that causes enough heat to start a fire, and it's a fire drill and board. It's just unusual.
And the board was with it.
The board is with it. We have some other pieces right here hanging from or suspended from these strings right here. They're unusual to this side of the Colorado River. These pieces that are hanging on a string were once round, like a little ball or bells. Yes, exactly. They're called crodles. And once they were round, had a little slot at the bottom. They placed a stone or a pellet in that would tinkle when that rattled or when it was moved. They're made from raw copper or native copper. Like I mentioned, they're unusual to be found on this side of the Colorado River. They're quite plentiful on the south side of the Colorado River.
And they're Spanish, or those are Indian?
They're Indian. They were probably traded in here from Mexico or southern Arizona, made down in that portion of it. They're probably roughly 800 years old in that period of time.
Okay.
In this grouping right here, we have a group of pottery vessels that actually do not belong to the Anasazi people, but I've placed them right adjacent to the Anasazi ware right here. These are Navajo ware, and they're 300 years in age, roughly, but placed adjacent to the 1,000-year-old Anasazi ware right here, we first noticed that they have really deteriorated. The Navajo ware has really deteriorated from what the Anasazi was doing 1,000 years ago. One way that the scientists use to date these vessels is by the coloring or the decorations on these vessels, and this is a good example of that. If you notice this vessel right here, you can see that the coloring on this vessel is faded right back into the pottery, almost like watercolor. And then if you compare that to this one right over here, we have this one with the colors that are really bold and strong that stand out on top right here. This vessel is quite a bit newer, and this coloring is done with mineral or rock pigment in the paint, as compared to this that's done with plant dye over here that's quite a bit older.
So the plant dye would soak into the pot over time, and the mineral wouldn't.
Right.